Hello friends, welcome to my channel Creating Essence. I am Megan. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today I was going to show you a little bit of how I use my dehydrator. One of the things I love to use it for is dehydrating herbs from my garden. A really popular misconception is that you need to grow tons of something to preserve it for future use. With herbs especially, that is not so. Everything that I'm using today is a minuscule amount, like maybe a 20th of what I have gotten from one single herb plant of each of these kinds of herbs so far this year. So you just need one kind of herb, and I have already put up so much from them. So I wanted to show you how to use a really simple, affordable dehydrator to put up today your herbs for future use in a way that they will keep for a year, 2 years, or more. So today in the garden I picked some oregano. This is a good sized bunch. I have gotten so much oregano from one single plant this year. So even if all you do is buy one oregano plant and grow it in a pot on your patio, it will get you years worth of oregano to use fresh and dried. This is basil, just a whole bunch of basil leaves. I've been harvesting my basil for months now. It's going to seed, so it's starting to get old, but there's still plenty of fresh, smooth leaves to be preserved. We're using it fresh still, and I'm preserving it. And this here is sage. Sage, this again, I only have one plant of it, and I have already harvested so much. They are big, thick leaves, so a little bit goes a long way. The first thing I'm going to do is wash all of this. Just basic, rinse with water and pat it dry with a towel. So they are all just rinsed with water and patted to dry with another towel. Nothing fancy here. I do completely organic, no chemicals, not even organic chemical fertilizers or sprays. So I just rinse with water to make sure any dust or dirt is off of them. Now this is the dehydrator I use. I've been using this for a couple of years now, and I have zero complaints. I know the Excalibur and other things like that are enormously popular. This does the job beautifully for me on anything I have asked it to do. So I think this was about $50 to $55 on Amazon when I bought it a couple years ago. It is well worth the investment. It can do quite a bit, and it does it pretty quickly. It is a very basic, bare bones kind of dehydrator. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these racks. It comes with a few different mats like this. This one has holes to let air in, and there are 2 like that. This one will, these 2 will not let air in, so if you have something that's juicy that you just want dried from the top because it might drip through the slats here or even on here, then this is a good one to use. They come with the machine for free. So these trays come off individually, so you can use as few or as many as you want. This is the bottom tray. It catches anything that falls and lets the air out the bottom after it blows down through. So it keeps anything from crawling in while things are dehydrating, and it lets the air out. So the first thing we do is put down one. We're going to do the sage first. So just going to lay the cleaned leaves down one at a time. Give them you don't want them touching, but you can get them real close because they're going to shrink a little as they dry. But just give them a little space there. You can cut the sticks off. I don't really care because it kind of makes them easier to handle once they're dry, and I'll show you that when they're dry how I use that and take care of them. So the sage is all used up. I could have fit a lot more on there, moving them closer together, but this is how many I picked. I could have run out to the garden and get some more because I have plenty out there still, but I just didn't feel like it. We'll dry this many to get put up and that'll be enough. Stack another tray on. They've got these kind of tracks on the bottom, I guess threads kind of, and they fit together. They all fit together the same way, so you can put on as few or as many trays as you want. And now the oregano. You can take these off the leaves or off the stems, or you can leave them on. I leave them on the stems because I haven't found taking them off to be any better as far as faster in dehydrating or making a better quality product. I just put them on whole like this. This first tray is full, and I'll start on the second one. Second tray is done. I just ran out of oregano, so I could have put more on, but I didn't need to. And now on to the basil. The basil we're laying out just like the sage, one leaf at a time. The first tray of basil is full, so I'm putting on the last tray to be filled. And the last tray of basil is full. We have a little bit of basil left, but we really used almost that entire basket of herbs. All we do next is put the lid on. It fits just like the trays fit together, nice and neat. It gives you a little guide here on top for the temperature of how to do it. You might find that in your climate, if it's particularly humid like mine is, you have to do a little higher. Let's plug it in. This says for herbs, it should be 95. I have found that 115 to 120 is better in the really humid summers that we have. I'm gonna let this go overnight, about 18 hours. You don't have to mess with it. It doesn't get too hot. The air blowing out is a little hotter than body temperature, so you really don't have to worry about what's around it, anything getting melted, anything dangerous. You can just leave it safely there overnight and not give it another care. All right, it has been about 24 hours since I put this in. It's just been sitting on the counter being completely ignored. I have out my little jars that have oregano, basil, and sage that I have already dried this year. You can label them if you need to. I just can tell by smelling them, because when you dry your own herbs from fresh, they are so much more potent than anything you will get from a store. So if you can't tell by looking at them, you can absolutely tell by smelling them. So I just keep them sealed in these jars, and we'll unplug our dehydrator and check it out. This is the basil. Now you can tell when it's fully dehydrated because it's crisp and it crumbles. If it still has any bend or limpness in it, or any just, you can feel the moisture, then it needs to go a little longer. I let it go about 24 hours, and then I check it after 24 hours, and if it's nice and crisp and crumbly like this, it is good. If it has any thicker, wet is a bad term for it, but you just can tell it's kind of more limp and has more substance than this nice, thin, curled up crunchiness, then I let it go a little longer. With herbs, there's really no danger in over drying them. So this is our basil, and we're just going to open the jar and put the basil in. You can crush it up yourself beforehand, but I like to just put the leaves in there And then I use my wooden tamper, which is totally not necessary. You can use a spoon, a butter knife, anything. But I have this for fermenting and it works perfectly. This is a wide mouth jar or a narrow mouth jar. And because these are narrow mouth jars, I just give it a press down. It not only makes room, but it gets it really crumbled up nicely into a great texture. Let's see if we can get it to focus. Anywho, I'm just going to move the rest of these leaves. I kind of give each one a pinch when I'm putting it in the jar to make sure each one is nice and crisp. And that is the last of the basil. I've already given it a couple of tamps to fit more in the jar. But there's the last of it, and I wanted to show you this last leaf. I found it underneath another one. Now the other one was perfectly crisp and good to go. But this one, like you say, it bends. It doesn't crisp and crunch. It feels perfectly dry, but it has texture and it bends. So that one is not ready. So I'll just put it off to the side since everything else is. And onto the oregano. Now, like I said with the oregano, I leave it on the stem, but this makes it really easy to just hold onto the stem and wipe the leaves off into the jar. You can see they have the same very crisp, crunchy, dry texture that the basil had. Now the oregano is finished, so we will move on to the sage. So the sage still has this little stem, but it really easily just snaps off with one finger because it's so brittle and crisp. And that is it. Now I've made a little bit of a mess on the counter here with my stems and a few of the leftover leaves. These I'm just going to put in the stock pot tomorrow when I make stock because they do have great flavor. And even with the leaves removed, will really add a lot of earthiness and fantastic herb flavor to my stock with my chicken bones. Here I have done, I think this was my second dehydrator load of these herbs, and you can see I have almost a full pint of really well crushed basil, oregano, and a half pint of sage, which I don't know about you, but I use sage a bit less than the others, but I do like to have it on hand because when you want it, the flavor is just irreplaceable. And those, as long as you keep a nice seal on them, they don't need to be canned, but a good tight seal to keep them dry and cool, they will keep indefinitely. So like I was saying yesterday, you really don't need to have more than a single potted plant on your patio or your front railing in order to have this kind of herb production for self-sufficiency, better flavors, better prices, cutting down on the chemicals in your diet, and so many fantastic benefits of having a simple potted plant and a very basic dehydrator. You can also lay these things out on a cookie sheet and put them in the oven on about 100 to 125 degrees for the same amount of time. It's a lot more energy efficient to use the dehydrator, and like I said, it is very affordable. This is not sponsored by Nesco or anyone at all. This is just what I've been using for a few years now and have really loved and found it to be an affordable way to do these things for my family. I will post a link below to the dehydrator that I use, and I think that's it. I really hope this helped some families or individuals out there. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, share it to anyone who might find it useful, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like these. Bye bye, friends.